Hello and welcome to the latest Jump King Challenge video, now featuring much better audio, I hope, because of some wonderful changes that I have made. In any case, I'd like to welcome you to 120 falls. So many falls. So I want to start by talking about the delay in video last week. I wanted it to come up on Wednesday. It came up on Saturday instead. And I don't plan to do this, but I didn't plan to do this. But the thumbnail also died. And I still haven't actually made one yet. But I'll probably stick one up eventually. It's interesting because I can see how bad that video is doing with no thumbnail. So thumbnails really do matter. People don't just click on gameplay. The reason for that was kind of twofold. One was just that I was catching up on some things during the week, and so I needed a bit of extra time. And wow, I was just thinking about how smoothly this was going to go. And now it's like a moment of weakness as I mess up at normal jump. And so there was mostly just that factor. I was just like behind on some stuff, so then I had to catch up. And it would have probably come sooner than Saturday. My whole intention when I scheduled that video was basically to be like, oh, I'll probably change it later and it will come out earlier. But then I had a health problem. Basically, I thought I was having a heart attack. It was Thursday morning. I was just talking to some people online, eating breakfast. I had a cup of tea, and all of a sudden my heart started beating really fast, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And so I also was like, "Oh, I have some chest pain. That's not good." So I typed in my symptoms into Google, read some WebMD stuff. I also just saw my phone light up for saying the magic word, which may have caused me to fall right now. But yeah, it really put me on edge as I read some of that stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I might be having a heart attack because I was having pain, I was having pressure, I was feeling my heart beat faster and faster. I took my pulse. My pulse was like a little high, but not too high. And then it was like, oh, well, I kind of looked around like, what do you do if your pulse just is a bit higher than normal, but like it's not seemingly that you're having a real proper heart attack. And it was like, oh, drink some water. So I get up, I pour myself a cup of water, I drink it, and as I'm walking over there, as I'm drinking it, I feel just like very faint, and it gets harder and harder to breathe, and I feel my heart going faster and faster. And then I sort of had the thought occur to me, just like, well, everyone will be so annoyed if I die because I didn't like call the hospital. And part of that is like listening to Fear End and Cutie Cinderella talking about how her mom was the type of person who did not call the hospital when something was wrong. And most of her life it didn't matter, but one time it did, and that was the time that she died. And I just was like, yeah, I don't want to die. So even if it's not a heart attack, but I thought it was, then I want to make sure I do my due diligence for my loved ones and for myself. So I called the emergency services. Ambulance came. They measured my heart rate. It was like 140. They were all very nice. The paramedics were nice people. They basically said, like, well, we can take you to the hospital if you want, but nothing that we have here tells us anything useful. And so I went to the hospital. At the hospital, I did some EKGs and stuff. They did some blood tests. They checked on me. They confirmed that I didn't have any embolisms on my lungs. They confirmed I didn't have a heart attack. But the specific cause of my situation is unknown at this time. And I've been talked to my doctors about it, and we're kind of in a wait and see stage. Nothing is apparently acute or likely to cause me any immediate harm. So that was that week, kind of, and I was kind of playing catch up after that in the weeks that followed, which is why there was no video last week. So, in the end, I lost some Jump King experience points in a way, which is probably why I'm floundering so much. But in terms of my health, I think everything should be okay. So that's good. Yeah. I think that's basically all I would openly share about that. So, I wrote out some topics because there weren't that many questions to answer, and I was like, I'll save that for another time. But I've been thinking about sort of like difficulty in video games, Souls-like curves, things like this. And I've been thinking about it especially because yesterday I was playing some Carry That Glass with Yulia. And in that game, we're kind of experiencing a difficulty bottleneck. Every time we play, we get a little bit farther. However, we don't make as much progress, right? The progress level decreases each time. And it kind of begs the question of like, well, why do games get more difficult the more we play them? To what end, basically? And I mean, there's definitely reasons. Sorry guys, I forgot what I'm supposed to do there. There's definitely reasons, like the idea of like, oh well, the longer you play a game, the better you get at it, except Jump King, and thus the farther that you can go. Therefore, we need to challenge the player more. So the challenging of the player becomes part and parcel to gameplay because you expect their skill level to increase. And this is kind of based in sports even, right? In sports, you typically get better at games that you play a lot of, and so the challenges that you can take and do are much different. But I was thinking in video games and in sports in general. So I don't know if this really holds up. I don't think that increased difficulty is as important as novelty. And I think that novelty in games is often couched in the difficulty discussion in a way. So like by Instead of creating more novelty, difficulty is used as a novelty, or it's the source of novelty. Good example is Windswept Bluffs. Windswept Bluffs, right here, where I am in Junking, it introduces the new mechanic of the wind, and it creates the new mechanic of the snow as well, and it changes the gameplay. So that's the novelty, in two ways, right? I can't move left to right, and I also have to rely on the wind, and that is the big change. So difficulty is created by the novelties here, because the novelties are restrictions. The novelties aren't required to be restrictions at all, right? That is optional. They just happened to be that a lot. So in many games, right, when they seek out difficulties, what the side effect is they're actually just seeking out novelties, just ways to make the game more interesting, and more. It's really bad. To make it catch, right? To keep the player engaged. And my sort of theory, I guess, is that in a game you don't need to increase the difficulty at all, as long as there's novelties. There's either something new to learn, new mechanics to exploit, new gameplay aspects to engage with, and I see this as true mainly because of oh shit. I'm so glad I didn't fall super far, because I was not remembering to wait there, and then it came to me and I was like, oh no, Joey would say this. And if Joey's watching, then I'm real sorry. Okay. Wind shifted. And I think of my favorite games. Some of them just thrive off of one mechanic through and through, and difficulty and novelty are linked in some way. A good example is Hades. Hades becomes a little bit more difficult the farther in the game you get. But on the other hand, it counteracts this difficulty equals novelty equation quite a bit, because it has unlocks and other kind of rogue elements that create a permanent sense of newness. So difficulty and the newness that you experience happen kind of side by side. So as you're playing, you're experiencing novelties in terms of difficulty, but also novelties in terms of ease, and novelties that are separate from the equation altogether. So, in other words, it demonstrates that difficulty is not like the end-all be-all of creating novelties, and I would argue that novelty is much more important. And I would look at a game like the Hex as an example. In the Hex, you are playing a series of different games. You play a JRPG version, you play like a Hotline Miami style game, you play like a fighting game, you play like a chef baking game, and you also play like a platformer, almost like a Sonic style one, or like a Mario Sonic hybrid, I guess. And throughout that, of course, you also have the novelty of the story, constantly engaging you in interesting ways. But more importantly, the gameplay is shifting significantly. So as you play, you have something new to learn, you have something new to do. And a big part of gamification is you're learning things while you play. That's part of it, is like discovery, novelty, something like that. And I think most people would agree that like there's multiple kind of approaches to that was perfect, but it didn't work. It was not perfect then. I think only in competitive games, basketball, as an example, but also Counter-Strike for video games, or other such things. They might have repetitive actions because they're strictly about the expression of skill. And MOBAs kind of cheated in a way, and this is maybe why they blew up, although less stably, in terms of like attention. I suspect it has to do with the fact that you're always learning new things in MOBAs, and this constant sense of novelty is motivating. We like to discover new things. We like to adapt and grow, and difficulty is one way to do it, but it is not the only way. And that brings us to Jump King. I don't remember. Do I need to be up there for that? I think so. In Jump King, the novelties come only from introducing new mechanics, difficulty, environmental cues. Now here, this section of the church tower is less difficult than Windswept Bluffs, as you can see. I got to the top with much less effort. However, what comes up must go down. However, like any part of Jump King, Jump King understands a rule of, we don't need to make every jump difficult. They know, for instance, that these jumps, the sequence that I just messed up, it's about memory. This part isn't hard. The window for failure is not crazy. The amount of effort you have to expend to get each part is not so bad. And like, look, I failed that jump, and I can just do it again, right? I failed that jump, and I can just jump back. In Jump King, you get a rest sometimes, on purpose, right? This is by design, because the hardest jump of the church is right here. See, you overshoot it a little bit, all the way back down. And then you do a series of easy jumps again. You're back to square one. Now the easy jumps, they are here as a little bit of a rest. They lull you into a sense of security. Now, I don't know how intentional that is, but that's the effect, right? Now, if every jump was just difficult and more difficult, you wouldn't feel a sense of triumph for arriving here. So when you arrive at the church, you realize that you can't fall all the way down to Windswept Bluffs. You can't fall down to Bargainburg. You can't fall down to Colossal Drain. In other words, you're very far. And so instead, you now go, okay, there's one jump that I mess up, and then I have to do this whole sequence all over again, and it's kind of an attrition game. But you have this soothing choral music. You slowly get more and more into the rhythm of this section, and you're mastering it little by little. I wonder if I bounce off that. Yeah, I guess I can max jump that, huh? Crazy. But maybe that isn't the hardest jump. Who knows? Certainly felt that way. Blue Rune is where the difficulty enters into the equation again, right? The novelty now is the ice, sliding, and you have to fight against it. It is the same as actually what Yulia and I and Carry the Glass are dealing with right now. Is the exact same thing. And it's hard, right? You undershoot, you overshoot, you create problems. All this to say, I don't think Jump King is a perfect example of the formula, but I think it's smartly designed in that it has these moments of pause where the novelty is just the environment. And that's what it is here, right? And of course, there's also like the novelty of like you're bouncing off these things like this, right? But that's something that you had to do in a couple other spots, so it's not like too crazy. All right, my next topic. At 38 Falls is just kind of like an experience I've been having of late, where it used to be when I talk to people and I say I'm American, they would be like, ah, Trump, haha. And that sort of joyous mockery and shame that I would feel uh, has been displaced by the more, in Germany, people are more aware of certain things like fascism and just like, oh, things are really messed up there. Like, yeah. And this is very different than the past version, I would say. Okay. Okay. But I noticed in a conversation with one particular pair of people that I don't usually spend lots of time around. But they just said, oh, it must feel good to be here, right? Since America is turning into a fascist society. And I'm like, yeah. And I kind of wonder, like, if people don't think that much about it, right? Because obviously it's happening. Bad things are going on. And I am, in some ways, happy to not be there. But it's almost inhuman to me to think about it as if I do not have a family or memories or friends who live in the U.S. As if these things do not affect me in some way. And of course, they may affect me in many ways that are lesser than people living there. But also, I'm not there. I have to deal with the incapability to do much, and my incapacity to even know what's happening. Right? Like the truth of the matter will never really be known by me. Whatever's going on there, just because this is not how it works. If you don't live in the place, you don't get to know what's happening. So, the best you can do is read shit, and that helps sometimes, but not all the time. Okay. Now this is a new zone for me, obviously, so I'm really curious here what I'm supposed to do. I think I can maybe just jump again. Like I spin down, I'm pushing against it, I jump up again, and then I stop. That's my theory. Okay, that didn't work. But I didn't fall very far. Maybe I didn't do it right. I'm gonna try it one more time. I didn't really get to jump. Now, if I don't try to push against it, and I just try to jump, something else might happen. Okay, the jump happened, but the timing was quite bad. I wonder if it's possible that way, or if I'm going up, like, barking up the wrong tree. All I can say is I really, I actually like this zone a lot. Both the ice zone and also this one. there's just something nice about not being in the wind anymore. The wind is really my biggest enemy, I think. And maybe I'm gonna rue that. Maybe 30 episodes from now, I'm gonna still be in Blue Rune. I have like way different feelings about this. It just feels a lot more fun. And I don't worry about my impatience killing me so much as like imprecision. Like that was imprecision, right? And I prefer that. It's like that's a good shift in what the gameplay is. So in the end, I suppose my thoughts on these questions that I get asked about, how do I feel about this, and why don't I feel gratitude, etc. It's like, well, I do, but I also don't, because people I love and care about are in that place, and it's not like a game to me, and that's I guess where my frustration comes from. We're at 47 falls, and my next topic. I want to talk about the cultural analysis of chunking. I was thinking about Folding Ideas' video about the ideology of Minecraft. And how it undergirds certain colonial implications and lives out a certain kind of fantasy. And I was thinking just before filming, what is Jump King's ideology? And some of it is pretty obvious, right? Jump King. It's not Jump Queen. Not Jump Royal. Royal Jumper. So straight out the gate, we have a kind of titular fantasy of being the king of jumpers. The king being associated, with power, strength. And in that masculine patriarchal position, we have the beginning of the formation of what this game is about, right? What is the goal of the game? Broadcast in its paratext at the beginning, to get to the babe at the top. That's what the objective says if you hold the menu, right? And that is something worth thinking about. The babe, she is the prize, right? She's the award. If you succeed, then you get her. She's the objective. She isn't a person, she's an objective. Something that you can secure or you can earn. Something that is a goal. And of course, like, we objectivize, and I don't mean like objectify, I mean objectivize people all the time. It's part of life, right? You for example, in the business world, you might have a partner that you need to land. You're objectivizing the partner. You turn them into an objective, and you seek them out. You want them to be your partner, in the sense of the firm. So there's nothing like innately uncommon about something like this, but it's ideologically interesting. It's the idea of like a person as reward. What does it mean to get to the babe at the top? We don't know, actually, and that's interesting, right? The game doesn't tell us get kissed by the babe at the top or get the babe at the top. It says get to the babe at the top. That's important too. It doesn't merely make the babe the prize, it's the experience of getting to the babe. And then maybe the prize will be bestowed, could also be said. But our objective is to reach this person. Even so, the babe is, I think, by by my knowledge, implied to be part of this tradition of Mario, right? You're getting to the princess, and you're trying to rescue the princess. That's what it's about. And so there's this very feudal, very heteronormative connotation there. Guys, I didn't. Feels cool. How are we gonna do this? I think we might have to bounce out. I'm so happy. So happy. What else is Jump King about? It is about upward mobility. You can travel far and wide to get to where you need to go. And every time you get a little bit higher, a little bit further up, and every step is a type of progress, right? And I wonder if I'm supposed to get on the tip of this ice, because I don't think I can make it to that ledge. That was way overshot. But in Jump King, right, this idea of climbing, reaching a new height, it is about progression. It's about meritocracy. It's about growth. It's about rising to the occasion. It's about getting on top. It's about climbing the mountain to see the summit. It's time to progress, right? Every bit of progress is measurable. One more jump, one more screen, one new height, one new peak. And this all falls very much in line with the idea of like the narrative of progress. The idea that the longer you do something, the easier it gets in a sense, but also the longer you do something, the better it is. The more time goes on, more progress you make. This is tied up in things like the sunken cost fallacy, of course. It's a kind of delusion that humans have, that when we do something for a long time, we get better. And Jump King is different than real life, fairly. Because when you play Jump King, and you play it each day, or you play it once a week for a long time, with some missed times in between, you do make progress. You find new heights, and much like I did a bit ago, you smile really happily, and you're excited to move forward again. This is different than work. You know, sometimes in work you get a promotion, or you advance in pay, or you find a bug in the system and you get promoted, or commended at least for it. But usually you don't. And in Jump King, usually you do. Every little bit of growth is meaningful in some way. Every bit counts towards something. And that's why people play, right? That's why we're playing this game now. That's why it was a challenge for me. Because I knew the longer we played, the better our chances of actually doing it are. The better it could become, both as a viewer, hopefully, but also for me as the player. And so that meritocratic promise is the false promise of capitalism, but articulated in some way. If I get to the top, if I do everything right, what do I get? I become the king. I become very powerful. I also, more importantly, I get to the babe. And I think for the target audience of this game, much like me, single, young but maybe aging men, there's something to it. It's a desire that you want to fulfill. You want to be a king. You want to succeed at challenges that are difficult. You want to prove yourself in some way. And that's somehow lacking in capitalism. You know, proving yourself doesn't come all that often. When you do a good job at Mickey D's, you don't get anything out of it. You just get a good job, maybe. Nice job. But you could do a bad job and no one would be the wiser. No one would care. Maybe. Just do the bare minimum then. And in Jump King, even the bare minimum every day, 100 falls, 105 falls, 115 falls, it all comes back with real skill expression. That was really close to being good. Timing was just off. That's tough. We also have a hierarchy of place in Jump King. We start in nature. And we move towards like a lush, we move through a lush area into the red area, more autumnal, which clearly symbolizes spring to fall, right? Time is passing, but also symbolically, autumn is indicative of like a civilizing tendency. It is the death of nature in some sense. Not quite winter, but on the way. And after that, we go to the colossal drain, the bottom of civilization. So outside of nature, at the very bottom, we have the shit pipes. We have the places where your waste would go, the drain. If you can climb out of the drain, and interestingly, it is from the drain that nature is maybe being fed, right? Like that's just intriguing in a way, at least to me. You end up in Bargainburg. Interestingly, Bargainburg has the word bargain in it, right? It's there's some kind of bargain there, some kind of cheapness to it. Oh, what was that? I think I was too far to the right. After Bargainburg, this city of bargains, you jump through its very dilapidated and destroyed structures. And you end up in the Windswept Bluffs, right? On cliffs, basically. Cliffs that overlook the town. And what is it that overlooks the town? This tower that I'm in now. I mean, before that, there's these spiritual, aesthetic areas. So there might be something also in the Windswept Bluffs that maybe could be mentioned too. But I'm skipping over that. Sorry. Above that is the church. The power that oversees, and that's interesting, right? I am gonna mess up that timing so many times because it's very unnatural feeling. There we go. All that to say, I think that there's certainly a kind of capitalist fantasy being lived out in this game, and I mean even down to the measuring of time, efficiency, falls, jumps. This is all part of that idea of like the ideal play, the optimized play, and so on. I feel really bad when I mess up the jump that's just like the long one, because I feel like it's not tough to like do the jump itself. It's like the landing that's hard. And so when I mess up just the jump, I kind of feel a little tilt factor. All right. So I sort of have shared my thoughts there, I guess. I hope I've made the thesis seem comprehensible, because it is a little hard to talk and play at the same time. This is also a little bit wrapped up in the whole difficulty thing, where it's like, well, when progress and difficulty are rewarded, it kind of implies like the higher stress, more difficult world is more rewarding, and it also implies that those who are more rewarded are in some way dealing with greater difficulty, right? And that's just not true, right? For example, I could cheat at Jump King if I wanted to. I could go find some kind of bot or something to do this game for me. I could turn it on. I could play the game and just cheat my way from beginning to end, and I would get the same reward. And this is like one reason why, people like me, we don't like cheating in general. I'm just not a big fan of it. I think it robs the activity of fun that you're supposed to get from the game away from the game. But in terms of just getting that reward, I think ideologically it certainly makes sense for this to exist. It's an accurate reflection of the capitalist world, right? So the fact is, people will cheat at this game to do what I have done so far, to go further, and to do it in much less time. And there's nothing more capitalist than that. Cutting corners, doing things in a way that is just easier for you. Even watching a Let's Play instead of playing a game is, in a way, a rendering of this sort of... Did it again. I'm really glad that didn't count as a fall, though. A rendering of this, yeah, I was going to say tableau of capitalist thoughts. Like, it renders this from active into passive consumption. And so if you're watching Jump King here and you're thinking to yourself like, well, I'm watching Lucas play it, so I don't have to. I think in a way you are being that capitalist, right? You are, strangely enough, rendering the active form of it, the difficulty of play and so on, into the passive commodified form of it, as if to alienate your own sense of triumph and instead parasocially engage with it through me. That is fascinating to me. It's interesting, and I've thought about it in the context of reading, for sure. Audiobooks, big thing, big topic in academia about books. and about their pedagogical dimensions. How can we teach the audiobook? How can people cite the audiobook? Are audiobook listeners absorbing content as well as readers? Are they merely rendering it their text into a passive source of engagement instead of doing the work? And I think it's a tough question to answer, actually. I have always been very permissive of my students when it comes to audiobooks. I don't really mind. I would rather them read the audiobook than do nothing. But in terms of research, what does it mean, right? To render the text this way. It's something we think of. What a tangent that was, huh? And it's easy for me to get into those tangents, I think, because being an academic, you do work after work. Your brain is always on. You're always thinking, what can I do to make the next article, the next idea, the next essay? And, or at least that's how it is for me. Maybe it's not that way for everybody. I don't know. But for me, it's full of ideas. And it's full of potential projects and work and desires and work and work and work and work. And the biggest example of this, I think, has recently come up for me, which is the work that I have to do after my university contract ended. Now, in the literal sense, I don't have to do that work. I am no longer contracted. But in the sense of like, do I ever want a future job in the academia? I of course need to make sure that I leave off on the best foot. I need to fulfill any obligations that I may have had that exist outside of the contract, right? So a good example is like term papers. So I didn't receive term papers until middle of September, end of September. I was on holiday during most of that time. So, and I had to create a handover document. I had to do all kinds of stuff like this. So there's workable hours that never could have been within my contract. There just wouldn't be the payment to do it, right? It's not enough hours to do the work, and I'm not getting paid for those. And so I got some messages from some students who are like, oh, when am I going to get my term paper back? I really need it back. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have to do that too. And I just don't like it. It's unfair, right? Because the job is over. I shouldn't have to do more work. Yet I do. And it's unpaid. And I hate that. I just wanted to vent a little bit, I guess. But this kind of came up this morning, so I have to work on that. And I also have other academic projects that have been on the back burner. There are some people who certainly are waiting for something to happen, and they don't know what's happening. They don't have an update from me, or they don't have an update from other people involved, and that means that they are SOL right now. That said, I think this segues into the next category rather well, with 19 falls to go, which is Chapel Perilous. That's what it's called. um, the current state of the videos on this channel. And I want to talk about the challenge video I did. I did this weekly challenge where for an hour a day, I would do self-improvement for a whole week. I really liked the idea. It was really beneficial to me. And I even started making the video months ago now and was slowly kind of editing away. And sadly, when I switched over to Windows 11, I could not figure out where the DaVinci Resolve files went to. So I lost all of my earlier Jump King files, which is fine. All of these get made into video as soon as I can. But I also lost the challenge video and the many hours of work that had went into it. Probably not that many hours, but definitely at least 4 hours of just figuring out stuff that I wanted to do for the video, organizing things, and so on. A lot of that takes time, right? And planning. I was kind of like, okay, how am I going to narrativize this in a way so that it isn't boring? Which parts of my freestyle rap that I had to do are included. So that video is in a weird state. I don't know if I want to make it, if I want to make a very short version of it, just like really condensed now. It just says, you know, this is kind of what I did. This is what happened. This is the story about it. Or if I do something different. You know, if I just try to do the whole thing, if I try to get rid of it and just go, okay, it's over. That was a nice try, but you know, circumstances got in the way. Yeah, so let me know what you think I should do. Next topic is the video essay I started working on about a year ago. I've written more on it. It's been growing. And some of it has been kind of fueled by a lot of like YouTube drama, weirdly. Like I've been more motivated about it because I think there's this really underlying mechanism that is very much part of it, right? And I mean, Philosophy Tube already has 2 videos now that engage with the phantasm a lot, which is also what I'm engaging with. And I'm hoping that I can draw from some of those videos a little bit more now too, because they're now out there, very much so. The most recent one being about birth rates, and about the natalist movement and this kind of stuff. And you know, there are a lot of arguments in there that I partially agree with, right? So there's it's an interesting thing to then engage with in terms of the phantasm, to move towards what I'm focused on, which is similar to more what Butler herself is focused on. But you know this, the video is still being worked on. It's not iced. It just takes time. It's hard to think about exactly what examples I wanted to use and things like this. And some examples have grown far more relevant or far less relevant than I had imagined them to be. I will say, though, that I'm thinking it will at least be an interesting video for people who are educated, right? Or who want to be educated. I've got 10 falls left. And I still think I need to get on that little peak, and I really hope that's true. My end of the year video is also going to be a thing, of course. What was that? Okay, well. Wait. I almost... I salvaged that and then I messed it up. It's really sad. Also, I didn't need to risk going over there that way. I also want to talk about the end of the year video. It's going to be bigger than last time. But most of the pre-work is done. The main, I don't know, problem, I guess, is just, will there be something that I engage with in November or December that will radically alter the list, right? And it's possible things have already radically altered the list in October. So things can definitely be changing all the time. I am hopeful, however, that it will be a fun video. It was my most successful video. I think it will be my most successful video of this year. And I know that that kind of content is fun to watch, right? And maybe Jump King, it hasn't always been fun to watch. For those of you who like to hear me blab, maybe it has been. you lucky few. But for those who do not, or who do not like gameplay videos and things like this, that is a different story, right? What a fall this was. I bet you that was fall 114. I also have some intentions to film some other videos this week, actually. Because at the beginning of the year, I set New Year's resolutions. And boy, did I fail them. But I set a bunch, because it's fun. And it's a good way to get you to do some things. And some things I did were because of New Year's resolutions this year. So, it wasn't a complete fail. But there are aspects and things where I made mistakes. Like I wanted to do 52 videos this year. As of this recording date, I've done 15. And maybe I could do a video every day. I highly doubt it. But I think I'm not going to reach that goal. And I've kind of made peace with that. This year was way more intense than I expected, both personally and in terms of work. It was much more than I had anticipated, and ultimately, that's fine. Sometimes life is tough, and I think this coming year looks like it will be at least a little bit easier on me. So for that, I'm excited. 3 more falls, and that was really amateur hour there. What's funny is I don't really have a final topic. So it's time to bust out something important. It is time to try German Fanta with its 3% orange juice and Cypriot Fanta with its 20% orange juice. Now, I received this Cypriot Fanta a while ago. Got some like pulp in the bottom. I'm hoping it's still good. I'm looking for an expiration date. I'm not finding one. But the truth is, if I drink it and it's if it's poisonous, I will probably be able to tell from the taste, I assume. I hope. Looks. Usually you'd expect it to be on the bottle, right? There's just no numbers at all. Oh, here. Oh wow. Yeah, this is expired. It actually might have even been expired shortly after I got it, which is wild. Um, you can still drink it within 9 months of its best by date. Okay, so I can still drink it now. It's barely in that frame. I'm gonna start with the the German Fanta though, which I bought much more recently, but now I'm like, does it expire? I'm just curious. So give it a little shake. I don't know why I shook pop before I drink it. That's crazy. But I guess the good news is it's old enough that it didn't explode. And I didn't shake this one that much. It smells like Fanta. And German Fanta also tastes similar to American Fanta, except less syrupy. You know, it doesn't have high fructose in it, so it's different. And now time for the Cypriot version. Literally no fizz. A little worrying, but I'm going for it anyway. Yeah, it's way more like an orange juice, I would say, or like a Sunny D. Um, hmm. Has less fizz, obviously. Um, there's definitely a note in common, and I guess that's the orange flavor or something. But even the consistency is a little different just from, I'm guessing, just from the juice content, right? It has a more, in Germany there's Apfelschorle, which is like apple juice mixed uh with carbonation, and this kind of gives me almost like an orange Schorle, an orange juice version of that, but maybe with like Fanta mixed in. um, yeah, I would say I don't like it actually, and I think it's because I just don't love. This is the 120th fall. I just don't love orange juice all that much. I think it's good with a breakfast, but not with everything. And that's been 120 falls. Thank you very much for watching. We made some progress today. New peak, but we didn't reach the peak. One more screen to go. Like and subscribe.